on into chapter 49, which is titled Storm. So again, it picks up from Gin's tale of what happened to them on the Grand Line. He still can't believe that one man was capable of crushing Don Krieg's fleet, and yet Zeph, he confirms this by saying that such a feat could be done by that hawk-eyed man. And Baratie and the other ships, they can't believe that something like this could happen. Meanwhile, Usopp and Luffy, they have no idea who this man is. But Zoro, of course, he certainly knows him, and he reminds Usopp and Luffy that that's the man that he's been searching for. And at this point, funny enough, that the chefs, they are reminded of one particular customer who was given the nickname of a red-eyed man, because this man would drink so much wine that his eyes would turn red. But at one point, this red-eyed man, he had drank so much wine that he caught fire all of a sudden and he exploded. And it's having heard about this red-eyed man that Zoro realizes that Johnny may have gotten his information mixed up. Because if you remember, Johnny had mentioned that he had gotten some information that the hawk-eyed man had been spotted in the area. So Zoro thinks that maybe Johnny might have been referring to this red-eyed man that was a frequent customer to the restaurant. So then Sanji, he asked Gin if perhaps the man might have attacked the fleet because he holds some kind of grudge against the pirates. But Gin, he doesn't remember if there was any kind of grudge, any issue between them and this man. But he notes that this man just appeared and he attacked them. And Zeph, he says to Gin maybe he might have just attacked them because they disturbed his nap. And Gin, he gets upset because he can't accept that his crew would be attacked for something as simple as that. Because this man, when he attacked the crew, many of the Don Krieg pirates were killed by this man. But Zeph, he tells Gin, calm down, because this is just an example of the kind of place that the Grand Line is. It's this strange place where anything can happen. Things that are normal are abnormal, and vice versa. Things that are abnormal are seen as normal. And of course, upon hearing this, Luffy, he suddenly gets fired up about going to the Grand Line. And Usopp, trying to warn him, at least be mindful of the danger that could be there near the Grand Line. And also after learning that the Grand Line is this place where the hawk-eyed man could be, Zoro, he sets himself up. He gets ready, so he decides, okay, what, I have to go to the Grand Line. But Sanji, seeing this, he's not impressed, because he doesn't think that the Straw Hats should be venturing out to the Grand Line and possibly getting themselves killed over there. Only for Zoro, he takes an exception to what Sanji has just said, and he says, the only person who's allowed to call Zoro a fool is himself, because he tells him that when he started on this journey to become the world's greatest swordsman, Zoro had forfeited his attachment to his life. That's the reason why he is willing to go to a place like the Grand Line, even if there's certain death. He could get himself killed over there. And yet, after hearing this, Sanji is still not impressed by, the Straw Hats. So from that scene, we shift over to the Dreadnought Saber, where the Krieg pirates, they're having, the food that Krieg has brought to them. They've recovered, and they are glad to be alive again after what happened to them on the Grand Line. And just as they're celebrating, being alive and well and everything, Don Krieg spoils that by telling his men that, okay, now that you're back to full health, we're going back to the Grand Line. And immediately, all that celebrating that the men were doing, it comes to an end. And they can't believe their captain wants to go back to the Grand Line. And one of these men, he questions Krieg's decision to go back to the Grand Line. And this man, he ends up getting shot by Krieg, because Krieg doesn't want any opposition from his men. And then he lays out their next move. They will abandon the galleon, then they'll take over the Baratie, which is only manned by a crew of ships. It shouldn't be a problem for the pirates to deal with. So from there we go back inside the restaurant, where the chefs, they are now bracing themselves as they hear some commotion outside. And it's because the pirates have begun the attack on the Baratie. They've arrived. But suddenly, the dreadnought Saber is cut, this big galleon is cut into 3 pieces. And everyone is seeing this, and they're just caught by surprise. Even Krieg can't believe that such a massive ship would be cut like this. And Luffy, he's suddenly racing out of the restaurant with Usopp and Zoro, and Zoro is reminding them that the Going Merry is outside. Nami, Yosaku and Johnny, they are there, they have to hurry outside. And Zeph, he orders his staff to raise the anchor for the Baratie before it gets caught up in what's going on outside. And once they're outside, Luffy, Zoro and Usopp, they don't find the Going Merry. Instead, they find Yosaku and Johnny. They are out in the water. And Zoro, he asks them, where's Nami? Where's the ship? And the bounty hunters, they apologize to Zoro, and they reveal that Nami has gone away with the ship, and she has taken all their belongings. Much to at this point in time, Nami is suddenly gone. It makes sense now, because if you remember, the last time we saw Nami was when Sanji had just met her and was serving her the fruit and the wine. And since then, we haven't seen Nami in the restaurant. We've just seen Usopp and Zoro. And now we find out why she had snuck out and gotten on the Going Merry and gone with the ship. And it's right after we find out about Nami disappearing with the ship that Zeph sees a man in a small boat approaching the Baratie. And this is how chapter 49 comes to an end. So much has gone on. The Dreadnought Saber has just been attacked. Nami has just left with the Going Merry. What is going on here? So let's move on now. Chapter 50, Parting of Ways. And the cover page for this one is volume 11 of Buggy's Crew Adventure Chronicles, and it's titled Attacked by a Crab, where a giant red crab has appeared and it destroys Buggy's makeshift raft. So from one problem into another problem for Buggy. So now we're picking up where the previous chapter left off, where the Dreadnought Saber has just been split into 3 parts, and the chefs have just seen this. They can't believe what they've just seen. With one chef wondering if maybe there was an explosion of ammunition on board the Dreadnought Saber that might have caused this. And we go back to Johnny, apologizing for what had just happened. Nami disappearing with the Going Merry, and we find out what happened by means of a flashback. And we see Nami is looking through a collection of wanted posters, and the bounty hunters, they ask her about one particular wanted poster which has caught her attention. And they warn her about targeting the pirate who's on that wanted poster, saying that he hadn't been active for some time, but Yosaku had heard some rumors about that pirate being back in action now. and there's a bounty of 20 million berry on that particular pirate. And even experienced bounty hunters like Yosako and Johnny were nearly killed by that pirate, as they recall. And suddenly Nami, right after hearing this, she starts acting strangely. The first thing she does is she goes to fetch a large sack which contains, she goes onto their ship, and then she comes back onto the Going Merry with this sack that contains all of the bounty hunter's treasure. And they're surprised because that's all their belongings. They don't understand why Nami has gone off to get their stuff. And then Nami, she asks Yosako and Johnny to turn around because now she wants to change clothes. So the two bounty hunters, they of course give her some privacy, but temptation gets the better of them, and they want to take a little peek. And as they're trying to turn around, Nami pushes them overboard into the water. And they can't believe that Nami would do this, and they ask her, hey, what's going on? Why are you doing this? And Nami, she just smiles at them, and she reminds Yosako and Johnny that she's a thief who steals from pirates. So stealing from the Straw-Hat Pirates was fair game. And as for Yosako and Johnny's treasure, she'll be taking their treasure as well. And she says she didn't agree to be part of Luffy's crew. It was just a temporary alliance. But she's willing to admit that she did have fun in the short time that she spent with the Straw Hats. Then she leaves with the Going Merry, and she gives the bounty hunters a message that they should give to the others, saying that if they are meant to meet again, they will. So after that, we come back to the present, and Zoro and Usopp, they are now very upset with Nami for what she did. With Zoro, he feels betrayed by Nami, and Usopp, he is concerned about their ship because this same ship is the gift that they received from Kaya. But despite this, Luffy, he points out that with the Going Merry, he can see it in the distance. And then he asks the bounty hunters about their ship, which is still there. And then he turns to Usopp and Zoro. But Zoro, he tells Luffy, just drop the idea of chasing after Nami. Of course, Usopp, he reminds Zoro that, hey, that's the ship Kaya gifted them. It's a big deal. But Luffy, he makes it clear that Nami is going to be their navigator, much to Zoro and Luffy's surprise, despite what has just happened. But this, after hearing this, Zoro, he changes his mind, and he agrees to chase after Nami. Yosako and Johnny, they've got their ship, so they'll use that to chase after the Going Merry. But Luffy tells them that he's not going with them because he hasn't paid off his debt to Zeph yet. So then he's going to stay. So from there, some of the Creek pirates, they have also spotted the man that Zeph had spotted, the man who's making his way towards the Baratie, and they start panicking because that man is the same man who attacked them on the Grand Line. And now it looks as if he followed them all the way from the Grand Line to here, the Hawkeye band that Zoro has been looking for. And we see now the boat that he's in. It's black in color, and the base of the boat, it's designed like the base of a wooden coffin. And the sail for this boat, it's folded up. It's got a single mast, and there are two burning candles, one on the left side of the boat and one on the right side of the boat. This is the man. And the chefs, they see this man too, and they're surprised at how ordinary this man looks, despite everything that was said about him And one chef even knows that he doesn't see any weapon on the boat. Only for Zev to tell the chef to look at what's behind the man's seat. And what's behind the man's seat is the cross guard of a large sword. And this, shocks the chefs, because they question if this man could have cut the dreadnought saber with that sword. And Zev confirms that, because this man, the hawk-eyed man, is the world's greatest swordsman. Taka no me no Mihawk, or Hawkeye's Mihawk. We get to see him up close now. And he's wearing this black wide-brimmed hat. He's got a long black coat that's got a red flower pattern on the inside and on both sleeves. He's wearing white pants and black boots, and around his neck it's this cross-shaped pendant. And of course behind his seat is the sword. We see it up close now with this grip that is wrapped with a bandage, and it's topped by a red-colored cabochon, which serves as the sword's pommel. So for those of you who don't know what a cabochon is, it's this highly polished gemstone that is cut into an elaborate shape. And so from there, the two arms of the crossguard that was mentioned, we see it up close now. These arms, it's golden, and it's shaped like a cross moline, or it's moline. Now this is a kind of Christian cross that has all its arms forked at the ends. Maybe you've seen that type of cross before. That's the design of this crossguard. And on this crossguard there are red gems that are set into the arms. And this man, once his eyes are shown, they do resemble those of a hawk, and they are red in color. Or if you've watched the One Piece anime or the live action series, his eyes are yellow instead. So this is it. This is him, Hawkeye's Mihawk. So now some of the Creek pirates, they fear that Mihawk is here to finish them off. And one of them even asks Mihawk why has he followed them. They didn't do anything to him. And he simply tells them, well, he just followed them for fun. And this immediately angers one of the pirates to the point where he draws two pistols and he fires at Mihawk, who responds by drawing his sword, and with the tip of the blade of the sword he deflects the bullets away from him. And this blade, this long blade, it's jet black in color and is curved upward. It's narrow from the hilt, and then extends, it widens all the way up until it curves upward at the end. If you want a basic example, think of the Nike symbol, the swoosh. That's the design of the blade. And the pirates are shocked because they thought maybe the shooter missed Mihawk, but Zoro is there and he tells them no, he didn't miss. The bullets were deflected by the blade, and he discourages the pirates not to shoot at Mihawk. And then Zoro, he speaks to Mihawk and he compliments him on his sword work. And Mihawk, he sheaths the sword and he tells Zoro that, hey, a sword without grace is not a strong sword. And cutting down the dreadnought saber with that sword is enough to convince Zoro that Mihawk is the real deal. Mihawk is the #1 swordsman in the world. And the Creek pirates who are there, they notice that Zoro has 3 swords, and they start to realize who Zoro is. Just as Zoro has he's untied the black bandana from his left arm and he's putting it on now. And he tells Mihawk that he is set out to sea in order to find him and to become the greatest swordsman. And he draws one sword and he challenges Mihawk to a duel. And the pirates now, they realize who Zoro is. Even Krieg and even Sanji, they are surprised that this is Pirate Hunter Zoro. And Usopp now, he warns Luffy that they'll lose sight of the Going Merry if they don't leave now. But as for Luffy, his attention is on what's about to happen now between Mihawk and Zoro. So Mihawk, he sees Zoro and he calls him a weakling before, disembarking from his own boat to stand on part of what's left of the deck of the Dreadnought Saber. This is where Zoro is now. And he says to Zoro that even without crossing swords with him, Mihawk can already tell that he is way beyond Zoro's current level. And yet, despite this, Zoro still challenges him. So Mihawk asks him, where is he getting this courage? Where does it come from? Is it from ignorance? Is it from confidence? And Zoro, he has drawn all three of his swords at this point, and he tells Mihawk it comes from his own ambition and from a promise that he made to a friend. And from that scene we move on to the final scene of the chapter with Nami sailing off on the Going Merry, and she already misses the crew, and she wonders if they'll call her their friend if they meet again, and that's if they will meet again. And next thing you know, there are tears that are streaming down Nami's face, and she just says she just wants to be free. And this statement is addressed to someone named Belme, and that's how chapter 50 comes to an end. We finally meet Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman, and right away Zoro has stepped up to challenge him to a duel. And on the other side, Nami has sailed off with the Going Merry, and she, despite what she said to Yosako and Johnny, she does miss being with the crew, and she's just mentioned someone named Belme. So things are falling into place now, and things are escalating. So that's chapter 50. Let's move on to chapter 51. Chapter 51. Roronoa Zoro falls into the sea. Okay. So the cover page for this one is volume 12 of Buggy's Crew Adventure Chronicles, which is titled Mysterious Lady Pirate Appears. And we see Buggy has been rescued from that giant crab which attacked him previously by this female pirate who is armed with a pistol. She looks very familiar because she's got long black hair and is dressed in a blue coat and is wearing a white cowboy hat and pants that are striped in white and pink colors. Now you should recall who this is, because this is Alvida. It's been a long time since we've seen Alvida, and yet she looks very different now, because the last time we saw Alvida she was this big, large woman, and now she's this slender, really good looking woman now. What's happened to Alvida? So from there we continue from the previous scene where Zoro and Mihawk have facing each other now. And Zoro, he says he didn't expect to meet Mihawk so soon, and to Mihawk it's a waste that they met so soon. And rather than draw his sword in response to Zoro's challenge, Mihawk instead takes off the cross-shaped pendant that is wearing around his neck and reveals it to be a small knife. And Zoro, upon seeing this, he asks Mihawk what he plans to do with it. And Mihawk tells him that he's not like other swordsmen who would exert themselves against much weaker opponents, basically chasing after rabbits with a cannon. So if Zoro, so he's just going to face Zoro with this little knife. So even if Zoro is someone who has made somewhat of a name of himself here in East Blue, and Mihawk goes on to reveal that East Blue is the weakest of the four seas. East Blue, North Blue, West Blue, and South Blue. East Blue is the weakest one. So even if Zoro is top dog in East Blue, it doesn't mean anything. And Mihawk, he continues to say, the four seas, which are divided by the Grand Line and the Red Line. So as far as he's concerned, he doesn't have a smaller knife to face him. And this immediately sets off Zoro, and he charges at Mihawk, and he prepares to strike Mihawk with onigiri. And Mihawk, he says, it's time for Zoro, who is basically a frog in a well, to see just how large the world is outside that well. And he immediately stops Zoro's attack, blocking all three of Zoro's swords with that knife. Zoro can't believe this. He can't move, noting that there hasn't been anyone before who has succeeded in countering onigiri. So he can't understand how there's such a wide gap between him and Mihawk. He just can't believe it, despite the fact that Mihawk is the world's greatest swordsman. But I guess, I don't know, it just didn't click for Zoro in that moment. But he refuses to accept what Mihawk said to him about the world, and he continues trying to attack Mihawk. But again, Mihawk easily blocks Zoro's strikes, and he knocks him down. Zoro gets back up and he tries again to attack Mihawk. Just in the background, Yosako and Johnny, they're cheering him on, and yet Mihawk continues to block Zoro, and he knows that there's so much ferocity, there's so much power in Zoro's attacks. He doesn't understand why there's so much power in this. Dawn Creek pirates are there as well. They're watching what's going on, and they're surprised to see Mihawk is easily fending off any of Zoro's attacks with just a knife. And Zoro, as he's attacking Mihawk, he remembers that all the training that he has done wasn't so that he could face this little toy that Mihawk is using and lose. All that training that he did, everything that he's been through, has been for Zoro to win. That promise that he made to Kuina after she died, to become the world's greatest swordsman, not just for his sake, but for her sake. That's another reason why Zoro has to defeat Mihawk right here, right now. And yet, despite all this, Mihawk, he just asks Zoro, what's pushing you so hard and forcing him to fight like this, even when he is sure to lose? And then at this point, Yosako and Johnny, they draw their swords, and they're ready to jump in and fight for their friend. But Luffy, he stops Yosako and Johnny. He tells them not to interfere, even though if you look at Luffy's face, he does not look very happy. He's very troubled by what's going on in this fight. And back to the fight, Zoro is again knocked back by Mihawk, but he quickly gets back to his feet, and then he sets up for Toragari, Tiger Hunt. And he remembers again his promise to Luffy, where Luffy, he had told Zoro that he expects him to accomplish that feat of becoming the greatest swordsman if he's going to be part of the crew of the man who's aiming to become the Pirate King. But unfortunately, much to Zoro's disappointment, his Toragari is ended prematurely because Mihawk has stabbed him in the chest with that knife. And despite this vicious blow, Zoro just stands his ground. He doesn't back away, and this puzzles Mihawk. And Zoro tells him that even if he doesn't know why, but he has a feeling that if he were to step back at this point, he would lose something very important to him, a promise. And Zoro wouldn't be able to make it back to where he is right now if he were to back away. And Mihawk tells him, well, this is what defeat looks like. And Zoro agrees. And this is why he really can't back away now. So Mihawk asks him, even if it means Zoro meeting his death, he still won't back away. And Zoro tells him that he would rather die than back away. And this astounds Mihawk. This really surprises him, because so much conviction from someone who has accepted this defeat, is prepared to die rather than accept defeat. So then Mihawk pulls out the sword from Zoro's chest, and he asks Zoro to tell him his name. Zoro identifies himself, and he prepares for another technique. And for this, he positions the two swords that he's holding to be at an angle, where to be at an angle against each other. And Mihawk has placed the knife pendant back around his neck, and he draws his sword, and he says he won't forget Zoro's name after seeing him display so much strength in their fight, which he hasn't seen in some time. And he holds up the sword, the greatest sword in the world, and he concludes by saying he will honor Zoro's swordsman's code by facing him with this blade. And the Dawn Creek pirates, they see the black sword, and they're shocked, because this is the same sword that was used to cut down their ship. And Zoro, he readies himself for his final attack, because it's now or never. Luffy, Yusaku, and Johnny, they're watching this. They brace themselves now, because this is it. And Mihawk then charges at Zoro, who begins rotating all three of his swords rapidly and initiates his ultimate move, the ultimate technique of his three-sword style, Santori Ogi, or three-sword style secret skill. And for a moment, just a moment, Mihawk is caught off guard by this. Before he and Zoro, they clash swords, and Zoro, is using his technique Sanzen Sekai, or 3,000 worlds. But the result is two of Zoro's swords breaking, and the only one that's left is the one that he's gripping with his teeth, Queen sword. That's the one that remains. And it's at this point that Zoro accepts defeat, having not even considered the thought that he would be defeated. So after this, he sheaths the sword, and then he turns around and he faces Mihawk with his arms wide open. And Mihawk, he questions this, and Zoro says that it would be a wound, that to be wounded on the back would be a shame for a swordsman. And this statement, it impresses Mihawk, and he proceeds to slash Zoro across the chest. That's how chapter 51 ends. That's how this duel between Zoro and Mihawk ends. Yeah, that's how Roronoa Zoro meets the Hawkeye Man. So from there, let's jump into chapter 52, the Oath. So right after the duel between himself and Zoro comes to an end, we see Mihawk, quietly cautioning Zoro not to rush to his death. And everyone who has been watching this is horrified. Even the Creek pirates, they've just seen a sample, of the power of someone who has been from the Grand Line. Not even Pirate Hunter Mihawk, Pirate Hunter Zoro was a match for it. It's at this point that Sanji remembers what Zoro had said to him back in the restaurant about throwing his attachment to life away on his journey to become the greatest swordsman. And now, after seeing what has just happened to Zoro, Sanji just calls him crazy for challenging such an opponent, because the result was obvious from the beginning that he was going to lose. So Sanji, he just shouts to Zoro, telling him, the easiest choice had been for him to give up on his ambition. And we see Zoro, falling into the sea right after this. Yusaku and Johnny, they dive in after him, while Luffy, he charges after Mihawk. we see Luffy stretching his arm over to the platform that Mihawk is standing on, and he flies towards him. And it's this catches the chefs and the pirates by surprise, because they had not known about Luffy's powers. And even Krieg now, he's surprised, because for him he realizes that Luffy is one of those devil fruit power users. And for Mihawk, he easily avoids Luffy's attack, right after guessing that he's a friend of Zoro's. But he doesn't fight Luffy, and instead he tells Luffy not to worry because Zoro is still alive. And we see Yosako and Johnny, they rescue Zoro from the water, and indeed he's still alive, showing signs of life by coughing up some blood. Before the bounty hunters, they help him onto their boat. And then Mihawk, he gives his full name as Dracul Mihawk, Mihawk. And he tells Zoro that it is still too early for him to die. Zoro should know himself and should learn about the world around him and become stronger, because no matter how much time passes, Mihawk will wait for him at the top of the world. So Zoro should continue to strike forward with all his might, and not only surpass the strongest sword, but to surpass Mihawk as well. And you see Yosaku and Johnny and Usopp, they are trying to resuscitate Zoro, and then Mihawk, he addresses Luffy and he asks him about his goal. What are you aiming for? And Luffy tells him, he's aiming to become the Pirate King. And this makes Mihawk smile a bit, because he says, well, that's a far more dangerous path than the one to become the greatest swordsman. But of course, Luffy is not bothered at all about how dangerous the path is to become Pirate King. He'll go on that path regardless. Then he asks Usopp if Zoro will be okay, and Usopp assures him that he'll be fine. He's just unconscious. But then we see Zoro, he raises his right hand, he's holding his remaining sword, holding it up, and he asks if Luffy can hear him. And he apologizes for making him worry, because he's well aware that if he fails to become the world's greatest swordsman, it would shame Luffy, to be an embarrassment to Luffy. So Zoro makes a new promise to never lose again until the day he faces Mihawk one more time and defeats him. And Luffy, hearing this, he is cheered up by Zoro's new promise, and he has no problem with this new promise. And Mihawk is pleased to see that Luffy and Zoro, they make a good team, and he says he would like to see them again in the future. But of course, someone has to spoil this feel-good scene, and that's Don Krieg. He appears and he confronts Mihawk, asking him if the reason he traveled all this way to East Blue was to get to Krieg. Mihawk says, well, for some time that had been the reason, but he has had his fun now, and now he wants to go back to his map. But Krieg, he's not satisfied. He tries to discourage Mihawk from leaving, and says because Mihawk, that fun that he had, it was at Krieg's expense. And you can see on the side, Krieg's men, they don't understand why their captain is trying to provoke Mihawk into sticking around, even after everything that has just happened. And of course, the next thing you see, Mihawk is opened fire by Krieg. But Mihawk, he quickly draws his sword and he delivers another powerful blow towards left of the Dreadnought saber, and it sends everyone flying. And once the dust clears, Krieg notices that Mihawk has vanished, he's gone. And from there, Luffy, he makes his way back to the Baratie, and he tells Usopp to go on ahead without him. And Usopp agrees, and as the boat is setting sail, he tells Luffy that he and Zoro will go get Nami while Luffy stays and he should get the crew a cook, and then after that they can head to the Grand Line. So from there, Krieg and his men, they stand by on the remains of their ship, and Luffy, he makes a deal with Zeph. In exchange for getting rid of the Krieg pirates, Luffy, he wants his duties as a chore boy to be waived off, and Luffy, Zeph, I should say, he accepts the deal. So now Mihawk is gone, but at least for Zoro, he now has a new, his ambition to become the world's greatest swordsman, it's been strengthened now after the devastating defeat, but he's still willing to continue on that path to become the greatest swordsman. So I think it was a good lesson for Zoro, because now maybe now fans can now pay more attention to Zoro, seeing him on his path to become the greatest swordsman now. So let's move on to the final chapter of this volume, chapter 53, Sabagashira number 1, or Macro Head number 1. And the cover page for this one is volume 13 of Buggy's Crew Adventure Chronicles, titled Wanted Man. And we see Alvida, the mysterious female pirate who rescued Buggy, shows him this hand-drawn picture of someone that she's looking for, and of course that person she's looking for is Monkey D. Luffy. And Buggy, reacts in anger, of course, upon recognizing the drawing, who that is. So that's Buggy now. So again, despite what has happened, Krieg is not too upset about losing his ship, because he and his men were going to abandon it anyway and set their sights on the Baratie. So even though it's an unusual looking ship, Krieg tells his men that they won't have any trouble navigating the Grand Line with that ship, because it can serve as a disguise to lower the guard of their enemies just before the Krieg pirates attack them. And the men, they can see the logic now, because nobody would suspect that a ship that looks like the Baratie would be teeming with pirates. But then there's one guy who he's got his concerns, and he speaks up, and he voices his concerns about returning to the Grand Line, and he asks Krieg what would happen if they were to go back there and encounter someone powerful like Mihawk, someone who's on that level. And of course Krieg responds by shooting that guy, and he shouts at this guy for being afraid of Mihawk. And Krieg points out that no normal person can do what Mihawk did to the galleon, and Krieg believes that Mihawk is another one of those devil fruit power users, much to the shock of his men. And he continues, and he says that devil fruit users that are usually talked about in legends and in rumors, there are many of them on the Grand Line. And Krieg is certain that Mihawk might have used some kind of strange power, perhaps a devil fruit power, when he cut down the galleon. And then he makes a little comment about Luffy, and he says, well, someone like Luffy, he would be just an ordinary pirate on the Grand Line. So now Krieg, he reminds his men about Zeph having spent an entire year sailing through the Grand Line. So Krieg believes that Zeph might have found a way to deal with devil fruit users. And so Krieg thinks that information might be in that logbook that Zeph is keeping. And perhaps there's information about One Piece in that logbook as well. And this excites the pirate. They get motivated now, because if they can steal the logbook, they can use it to navigate the Grand Line all the way to the world's greatest treasures. So from there, we're back in the Baratie, and Luffy is surprised to see how fired up Krieg pirates have become now. Then he turns back to Zeff and he asks again about the deal that they've just made, and Zeff assures him that yes, they've got an agreement. If he can deal with the Krieg pirates, Luffy won't have to work at the restaurant anymore, because as far as Zeff is concerned, if Luffy were allowed to work there for a whole year, the ship would be would be a wreck, like the Dreadnought Saber. So Sanji is there as well, and he asks one of the chefs where Patty and another chef named Kane have gone to, and the chef says that they've gone to prepare for battle, and this gets the chef is now amped up because Patty and Kane are quite reliable during times like this. And so Sanji instructs the chef to head to the control room and open the fins. Chef, he questions this because it would, he says, well, if we open the fins, it would give the Krieg pirates a platform to get onto the ship. But Sanji says that's the point, because Zeff would not be too pleased if the fighting between the chefs and the pirates were to happen inside the restaurant, so it might as well happen outside. So then, right after this, Luffy, he uses Gomu Gomu no Rocket to launch himself from the Baratie and into the Krieg pirates who are making their way towards the ship, and he knocks most of them into the sea with a flying double clothesline or lariat. This is Gomu Gomu no Ogama, or Gum Gum giant scythe. And then from there he proceeds to grab hold of a mast of the galleon close to a platform that Don Krieg is standing on. As the chefs are still marveled by these powers that Luffy is displaying. And Sanji realizes, that the Grand Line is filled with people just like Luffy, devil fruit users. And we see Krieg is there just laughing at Luffy for choosing to fighting him on a spot that is surrounded by seawater, because Krieg is aware that seawater is a problem for devil fruit users. But of course Luffy counters by telling him that although he can't swim, he can still stretch, so it's not a problem for him. Then suddenly there's a loud shout. It's from Patty and Kane. Kane now is if you go back to one of the previous chapters where there was a chef who told Patty about Don Krieg, that was Kane. He's this chef who wears these red glasses. So as they shout, they launch Baratie's naval weapon. This is the Sabagashira, or mackerel head number 1, which serves as the figurehead of the Baratie, the fish-shaped figurehead. So it detaches from the ship and then is steered forward by the two chefs as a paddle boat. And of course Luffy, upon seeing this, is beyond impressed, because this is the coolest thing that he has ever seen. And this is just the start of a running gag in One Piece, where characters see something mechanical and they get super excited about it. So this is just our first taste of that. So while Krieg and his men, they watch this in mild confusion, and then the next thing you know, the mouth of the mackerel head number 1, it's open, and it reveals that there are 3 cannons inside. And then the paddle boat turns in the direction of where the Krieg pirates are standing, and then it goes into full throttle towards them and fires. And of course the other chefs, they cheer on as they watch the mackerel head in action. And then the one chef was instructed by Sanji. He's in the control room now, and he raises the fins. And this, the fins, this is there are 2 semicircular wooden platforms that are on either side of the Baratie. They come up from the water, and the chefs, they gather on the platform that is just outside the restaurant, the entrance of the restaurant. and they are there facing off against the Krieg pirates. And then Patty and Khan, they then maneuver and turn the mackerelhead number 1 towards Krieg, and they charge towards him. But much to their shock, Krieg, he holds back the vessel with just one hand, and he throws this vessel all the way into the air, aiming it at the chefs on the Baratie. But before the mackerelhead can come crashing down on them, Sanji, he jumps into the air and he kicks the mackerelhead number 1 out of the way, back away from the ships, showing off, some fighting strength now, much to the shock of Krieg and the ships, because this is Sanji, annoying Sanji, who's usually troublesome, flirting with customers. All of a sudden, there he is, jumping into the air and kicking this boat away. What's up with that? And, well, this is how we end chapter 53, volume 6 of One Piece, with this incredible display by Sanji. So yes, that was volume 6. As you can see, an action-packed volume. I highly recommend, if you can willing to check it out, have a look at it, and you just go through it, or you can find the episodes of the anime which cover this volume. Go out of your way and check it out. So that was volume 6. So now that we're done with that, let's move on to checking out what happened in Weekly Shonen Jump way back in 1998. Specifically, we're looking at issue number 35 of 1998, which is also Weekly Jump 1507, which was published on the 10th of August 1998. And again, we're getting this information from comicvine.gamespot.com. So in the previous episode, Hunter x Hunter had been on the cover of that particular issue of Jump. This time, unfortunately, One Piece was not on the cover and did not have color pages to celebrate 50 chapters or 1 year of One Piece. Instead, on the cover of that issue of Jump, it was the main character, Tai Gong-wan, or Tai Kobo, was the main character of Oshin Engi, or Soul Eater, which was celebrating 100 chapters at the time. So it got the cover, it got the lead pages. So maybe next time for One Piece. So also in this this particular issue of Jump, there was Rurouni Kenshin, chapter 203, and then chapter 4 of a series called Kajika, which was created by Akira Toriyama. Yes, I think you should know who that is. Creator of Dragon Ball, Dr. Slump, Sandland. That's Akira Toriyama. So back then he had a series going on called Kajika, which he just started. It's an adventure comedy series. It ran in Jump from issue number 34 up to issue 44. It only ran for 12 chapters, which would be collected as a single volume by Shueisha and published on the 8th of January 1999. So according to its Wikipedia entry, there is no official English translation, but it has been released in other countries such as France, Germany, Spain, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, and Malaysia, in those other languages. But maybe there are some fans online who liked the series and were able to translate it in English, so maybe you might find it online. So from there was Seiki Matsuleader Den Takeshi. You know this one. It's chapter 51 of that one that was there. There was Hunter x Hunter chapter 20. There was Base Boys chapter 3. This one is from Makoto Niwano. Makoto Niwano, he is known for manga such as the Momotaro, Bomber Girl, and the manga adaptation of a series of children's fantasy books called Deltora Quest. Yeah, I don't know if any of you might have read Deltora Quest back in the day, but Deltora Quest would go on to have an anime. Maybe you watched the anime instead. Again, all the links to what I'm talking about, they will be in the show notes, so if you're interested in learning more about Deltora Quest or Base Boys or any of the other manga that I talk about, there will be links in the show notes. So the anime adaptation for Deltora Quest came out in 2007. So from there was Meiryote Goto Sei Judo chapter 33. There was Yu-Gi-Oh! Chapter 91. There was Hanasaga Tenshi Tenten-kun chapter 72. There was chapter 5 of a little new manga called Shaman King. I wonder how far that one went. There was Rookies chapter 25. There was Ice chapter 63. And then there was a one-shot called Taekwondo Shihan Kagami-kun no Kakato Otoshi. I'm not familiar with this one. I couldn't find who was the mangaka who wrote that one shot, unfortunately. But if I'll try again after recording. If I do find out information, again, I'll put that information in the show notes. Maybe it's a mangaka we might know of who went on to do another major series. That would be interesting to find out. Also in this issue, there was Whistle, chapter 22. Kochikame was there, chapter 1082. There was Boy, chapter 273. This was created by Haruto Umezawa. Now, Boy was a sequel to his first series, Hallelujah, which had run from June to August of 1992. And then Hallelujah 2 Boy would start in November of 1992 and would run up until February of 1999. It's a comedy Yankee series. Yankee is a genre of manga and anime that usually has to deal with characters who are Japanese high school delinquents. If maybe you've encountered manga or anime of that particular genre. One manga that comes to mind, which I don't know if it popularized that genre or is one of the more well-known series of that genre, is a series called Clover. Maybe you've read Clover or you've watched the live-action movies about Clover. So that genre, that's Hallelujah to Boy in Hallelujah. So according to the Wikipedia for Haruto Umezawa, he was a former assistant to Tsukasa Hojo and Takehiko Inoue. Tsukasa Hojo is a big name. You might know him because he created Cat's Eye and then went on to create City Hunter. Maybe you've read City Hunter or watched the anime, or you watched the live-action movie which starred Jackie Chan back in the early 90s. You can thank Tsukasa Hojo for that. As for Takehiko Inoue, you can thank him for Slam Dunk. So Haruto Umezawa, he was a former assistant to those two guys. So then we move on. Also in Jump, there was Jigoku Sensei Nube, or Hell Teacher Nube. This was created by Takeshi Okano. In this issue, there was chapter 239 of Hell Teacher Nube. This was a comedy, horror, dark fantasy manga. It was serialized from August of 1993 up until May of 1999. It's had a couple of spin-offs, it's had some sequels, and it's a big deal manga. Maybe you've had the chance to read it, to watch the anime. Takeshi Okano would, after Nube, he would go on to do another major manga. This was the manga adaptation for Digimon. It was called Digimon Next. which ran from 2006 up until 2008, and he did this in collaboration with writer Tatsuya Hamazaki. Digimon Next. So also in this issue there was Wild Half. This was a fantasy supernatural manga created by Yuko Asami. It was chapter 126 at the time. It was serialized from 1996 up until 1998. Wild Half. And also in this issue there was JoJo's Bizarre Adventure chapter 562. At the time it was in part 5, Golden Wind, of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So if there are any fans of JoJo was still a feature in Weekly Shonen Jump at the time. So that was Weekly Shonen Jump back in 1998. I'm not sure when exactly One Piece finally started to show signs that okay, this could be a big deal, let's start featuring it more, and we started to see it appearing on covers a lot. So unfortunately again it did not make it on the cover of this particular issue of Jump, but maybe next time, we'll see. So yes, that was One Piece volume 6. Again, action-packed volume, a lot to take in that one. We finally met Don Krieg. We got to learn about who he is. We got to see him in action against the chefs. We got to see this incredible suit of armor that he's wearing. I mean, if you talk about being dressed to kill, Don Krieg is an example of that, because his armor has got weaponry attached to it. And then we also got to meet the man that Zoro has been searching for, Hawkeye's Mihawk, the world's greatest swordsman. He makes his debut in this volume. So it was a chance to finally see Zoro get a chance to, a sample of what Mihawk is capable of, and just how wide the gap is between him and Mihawk at this particular level. But despite the defeat, again, you can give Zoro some credit for getting back up and willing to continue on this road to become the greatest swordsman. Not willing to settle for second best, but to keep on this road. So I just thought it's back then when I first read One Piece, I didn't think much of it, but now having reread volume 6, I think it was a good idea to have Zoro meet Mihawk now, and at least find out where he stands when compared to Mihawk. Maybe it should be much compared to if it had been Zoro just continuing on this journey, facing other swordsmen on and on until who knows when he would meet Mihawk. So at least now he has reaffirmed his mission to become the world's greatest swordsman. So yes, that was Zoro's big moment. And of course we can't forget about Nami having taken the Going Merry and going who knows where at this point. And she mentions someone named Belme. Who is Belme in relation to Nami? What does Belme have to do with the story? So that's just something to think about now. So that's volume 6. So we've reached near the end of the episode, but before that, just wanted to talk a little bit about the One Piece live action series. I did get a chance to watch it, and I plan to record a review of that. What I'll do is I'll try and rewatch the live action this week, prepare my notes, and then record my little review about it. I want to try and be fair, because I've got a lot to say about the live action series. So I'm hoping you're looking forward to that. If you're someone who keeps up with the MultiMangaverse, trying to get to know One Piece, my advice would be, maybe you'd want to read ahead if you're interested. Maybe read the first, I think 11, 12 volumes of One Piece, or if you prefer watching the anime, the first 53 episodes. That's how much the live action covers, so you can go ahead and read or watch those in advance, so that you're not worried about spoilers when you check out the review. So please look forward to that. And then I mentioned at the start of the episode that this episode would be, I guess for now, we'll be saying goodbye to We Are as our opening theme, and we'll be moving on to the second opening theme from the anime. It's a song called Believe, which was performed by the idol group Folder 5 from Japan. What I didn't know was Believe is a cover of another song, a Eurobeat song which is called Dreamin' of You, which was performed by this lady who goes by the stage name Lolita. So I just thought it would be interesting that, okay, let's find out what Dreamin' of You sounded like. And I decided, okay, to close out this episode, we'll go out with Dreamin' of You, to set us up for Believe next time when we cover One Piece, which will be One Piece Volume 7. That will be MultiMangaverse episode 50. So please look forward to that. So yes, we've reached the end of the episode. I hoped you enjoyed it, going through Volume 6 of One Piece again. If you're still someone who hasn't decided yet whether One Piece is a series that you'd want to dive into, I think at this point you've got your reasons to dive into One Piece. So I hope you will give One Piece a try and become a fan and carry on with it all the way up until the latest chapters, because man, you have a lot to look forward to, and a lot of things go on in One Piece that I think is one of the reasons why it's still going on today. So yes, thank you for listening to this episode. Please look forward to next episode, where we switch back to Hunter x Hunter, where we're covering Volume 7 of Hunter x Hunter again. Okay, so please look forward to that, and of course stay tuned, because coming up next is Dreamin' of You by Lolita. Have a great weekend, have a great week, take care.